Min-ji stood by the window of her bedroom, staring out at the dark street. It was early autumn, and the cool breeze stirred the curtains. Her fingers clutched the edge of the windowsill in a trembling grip. The clock showed 10 minutes to 11, and she knew she didn't have much time. "Mommy," whispered her 5-year-old son, Hyun Woo, sitting on the edge of the bed with a small backpack in his hands. "Are we really leaving?" She turned and sat beside him. His large brown eyes looked up at her with both hope and fear. Min-ji ran her hand through his hair, trying to stop her own shaking. "Yes, sweetheart. We're leaving. And Dad? He won't find us?" Her heart clenched in pain. Hyun Woo was too young to understand everything, yet old enough to fear his own father. Over the past 3 years, he had seen too much: bruises on his mother's face, her tears at night, the shouting and broken dishes. And just a week ago, he had whispered words into her ear that changed everything. "Mommy, let's leave Daddy. He's really bad." That night, lying in the dark after another fight, when Do-hyun finally passed out drunk on the couch, Min-ji realized she couldn't do it anymore. She had no right to keep exposing her son to such danger. For 8 years she had endured it. 8 long years, hoping her husband would change, that the kind man she married at 22 would come back. But that man was gone, replaced by a tyrant and a monster. "He won't find us," she said firmly, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. "I promise you, Hyun Woo. We'll start a new life." A snore echoed from the hallway. Do-hyun was asleep on the couch. He had come home around 9, drunk and angry. Min-ji barely managed to get her son into the room before her husband began shouting for dinner. She cooked him ramen, endured his insults, and when he finally fell asleep, she began packing. She had a small stash, money she'd saved for 3 months, denying herself everything. 500,000 won. Enough for a few weeks, until she found a job somewhere far from Seoul. Maybe Busan. Or Incheon. Anywhere but here. "Take your backpack," Min-ji whispered, standing up. She threw on her old jacket, slipped the money into the inner pocket, and grabbed her small bag. "We'll walk very quietly, all right?" Hyun Woo nodded. His face was pale, but he tried hard to be brave. They tiptoed out of the room. The hallway felt endless. Every creak of the floorboards made Min-ji freeze, listening to her husband snoring. Finally, they reached the front door. She slowly turned the handle, and it squeaked treacherously. The snoring stopped. "Who's there?" came Do-hyun's hoarse voice. Min-ji didn't wait. She yanked the door open, grabbed Hyun Woo in her arms, and ran out into the stairwell. A crash sounded behind her. Her husband had leapt from the couch. "Where do you think you're going, you bitch?" he roared, his voice full of rage. But they were already running down the stairs. 5 flights felt like forever. Hyun Woo clung to her neck, burying his face in her shoulder. On the 3rd floor, Min-ji heard their apartment door slam open. Do-hyun was coming after them. "Stop! I'll kill you, do you hear me?" She burst out onto the street. The cool October wind stung her face. The street was empty, only the distant glow of a convenience store sign flickered in the dark. Min-ji ran the other way, toward the bus stop. If she could just reach the night bus. "Mom, he's coming," Hyun Woo sobbed, glancing back. Do-hyun burst out of the building, disheveled, barefoot in his slippers, but terrifying in his fury. Min-ji had seen that look before, right before he hit her. She dashed across the road, not looking back. The bus stop was only 50 meters away. 40. 30. And then, from around the corner, a black Mercedes came speeding toward them. Min-ji saw the headlights too late. She tried to stop, but momentum carried her forward. In the last instant, she turned, clutching Hyun Woo to her chest, shielding him with her body. A crash. Pain. Darkness. The last thing she heard before everything went black was her son's terrified cry, "Mommy." Lee Tae-hyun didn't immediately realize what had happened. One moment he was driving down the empty street, lost in thought after meeting his lawyer, and the next, a woman holding a child appeared in front of his car. He slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The dull thud echoed in his soul like a wound. The car stopped. Tae-hyun jumped out, his heart pounding. A woman lay on the asphalt. Beside her, a little boy sobbed, shaking her shoulder. "Mommy! Mommy, wake up!" The child screamed, his voice filled with such panic that Tae-hyun could barely breathe. He rushed to them and knelt down. The woman was unconscious, a trickle of blood on her forehead, but she was breathing. Tae-hyun pulled out his phone and dialed emergency services. "Emergency? I need an ambulance. I hit a woman and child on Yende Street, Siachogu District." "Yes, she's unconscious. The boy seems unharmed." The boy kept shaking his mother, sobbing. Tae-hyun placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Hey, it's okay. Your mom just hit her head. The ambulance is coming, they'll help her." "No." The boy flinched away, his eyes wide with terror. You hit us. Now Dad will find us because of you." Tae-hyun froze. "Dad?" But before he could ask, a shout rang out from across the street. "Min-ji! You bitch, you thought you could run?" A man in his mid-30s was striding toward them, disheveled, in a wrinkled t-shirt and sweatpants. His face burned with rage, his steps unsteady, as if he were drunk. "I'll show you," he yelled, ignoring Tae-hyun and the car. "You'll regret the day you were born." Instinctively, Tae-hyun stood up, positioning himself between the woman and the man. "Stop right there," he said sharply. "This woman is hurt. I've already called an ambulance." The man finally noticed him. His glare grew darker. "And who the hell are you? Her lover?" He spat. "Get out of my way before I do to you what I'm gonna do to her." Tae-hyun was 32, and he had never been in a fight in his life. He was a businessman, heir to the Lee construction empire, a man who solved problems with money and influence, not fists. But now, looking at this drunken brute, something inside him twisted into a knot of anger. "I said stop," he repeated coldly. "Or I'll call the police." "Call them." The man barked, but he hesitated, stopping a few meters away. "She's my wife and that's my son. I have the right to take them." "You have no right to beat your wife," Tae-hyun said, pulling out his phone. And that's clearly what she was running from. In the distance, sirens wailed. The ambulance was getting closer. The man, Do-hyun, apparently, hesitated. Finally, he jabbed a finger toward Tae-hyun. "You're making a big mistake. I'll find them. I'll find them no matter what." With that, he turned and stormed off, disappearing around the corner just as the ambulance arrived. The next hour passed in chaos. The medics examined the woman, Min-ji, as the man had called her, and loaded her onto a stretcher. The boy refused to leave her side, sobbing and calling her name. Tae-hyun followed the ambulance in his car. He couldn't just drive away. Not after what he'd seen. The emergency department was unusually quiet for the middle of the night. The nurse at the reception desk looked up at him questioningly. "Are you a relative?" "No, I hit her with my car," Tae-hyun admitted. "I just want to make sure she's all right. And to cover her expenses." The nurse nodded, jotting down notes. Tae-hyun walked into the waiting area, where little Hyun Woo sat on a plastic chair, clutching his backpack. The boy wasn't crying anymore, but his eyes were red and his face pale with fear. Tae-hyun sat beside him, unsure what to say. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Hyun Woo," the boy whispered without looking at him. "Hyun Woo. Your mom's strong. She's going to be okay." She wanted to take me far away, the boy suddenly said, words pouring out of him in a rush. She said we'd leave and Dad wouldn't find us. Dad's bad. He hits Mommy. Every day. And I'm small, I can't protect her. The boy's voice broke, and he began to cry again, quietly, hopelessly. Taehyun felt his throat tighten. He gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. I'll protect you now, he heard himself say, and the words came out like a vow. I promise. Hyun Woo lifted his tear-stained eyes to him. Really? Really? Taehyun didn't know why he said it. He didn't know what made him promise a stranger's child something like that. Maybe it was guilt for hitting the boy's mother. Or maybe it was something deeper, something that touched his own unhealed wound. 2 months ago, his wife, Soo-jin, had left him. Left for his business partner and childhood friend, Ho-jun. They'd been having an affair for a year behind his back, and he, the blind fool, hadn't noticed. When the truth came out, something inside him broke. Not his heart, he'd long known he didn't love Soo-jin the way a husband should. Their marriage had been more of a business alliance between two powerful families. No, what broke was his faith in people. In sincerity. In the idea that someone could stay by his side not for money or status. And now, looking at this little boy, so small, so frightened, Taehyun felt an urge to make this right. To help. To save them. The door to the examination room opened, and a young doctor in a white coat stepped out, his face tired. Family of Han Min-ji? Taehyun stood. I brought her in. How is she? The doctor studied him briefly. A moderate concussion and a dislocated shoulder. We've treated it. She's sleeping under painkillers. She'll wake up in a few hours. She'll need rest for a few days. Can I see her? And you are? Taehyun hesitated for a moment. A family friend. The doctor shrugged. All right. But not for long. And take the boy with you, he shouldn't be here this late. Taehyun took Hyun Woo's hand, and they entered the ward. Min-ji lay on the hospital bed, pale, her head bandaged, her arm in a sling. But even now, in this state, Taehyun could see she was beautiful, delicate features, long lashes, lips that seemed sorrowful even in sleep. Hyun Woo stepped quietly to her bedside and gently touched her hand. Mommy, he whispered. I'm here. I won't go anywhere. Taehyun turned away, feeling a lump rise in his throat. He stepped into the hallway and pulled out his phone, dialing his assistant. Sung-jae? It's me. I need a favor. Min-ji opened her eyes and didn't immediately recognize where she was. A white ceiling, the smell of antiseptic, the quiet beeping of medical monitors. A hospital. The memories flooded back, running away, Do-hyun's shout, the blinding headlights. Hyun Woo. She tried to sit up and groaned in pain as her shoulder throbbed sharply. Mommy. Her son's anxious face appeared beside the bed. You're awake. The boy was sitting on a chair, his backpack by his feet. Min-ji raised her left hand, the right one was in a sling, and touched his cheek. Are you okay? You're not hurt? I'm fine. You protected me, Hyun Woo said, holding her hand in both of his. The doctor said you'll get better soon. The door opened, and a man stepped inside. Min-ji flinched. Her first thought was that it was Do-hyun, but a moment later she realized her mistake. This man was taller, younger, dressed in an expensive suit. His face was handsome but weary, and his dark eyes were filled with guilt and concern. You're awake, he said, stopping a few steps away from the bed. I'm glad. My name is Lee Taehyun. I was the one who hit you. I'm so sorry. Min-ji blinked in confusion. Her memories cleared, the black Mercedes, the headlights. Where's my husband? She whispered, fear in her voice. He left when the ambulance arrived, Taehyun replied. But, Mrs. Han, how do you know my name? Your son told the nurse. Mrs. Han, I want to help you. I can't accept your help, Min-ji said, trying to sit up again, gritting her teeth through the pain. I have to leave. Right now. Do-hyun will find me here, and then. I've already paid for everything, Taehyun interrupted gently. All the medical bills. And I spoke to the administration. You're registered here under a different name. Officially, there's no Han Min-ji in this hospital. She stared at him in disbelief. Why would you do that? Taehyun sat down on the edge of the neighboring bed and sighed. Because Hyun Woo told the nurse your story. And because I saw your husband that night. I understand what you were running from. Min-ji felt tears welling in her eyes. A stranger had shown her more kindness in one night than her own husband had in 8 years. I don't know how to thank you. But I really have to leave. As soon as the doctor releases me, you have nowhere to go, Taehyun said softly. No job, no home, and your husband will be looking for you. So I want to offer you a deal. A deal? He nodded. I need a housekeeper at my country estate. It's a big place, lots of work, and the previous one quit 2 months ago. You'll work there, and in return you'll have room, meals, and a salary. Enough to get back on your feet. Min-ji looked at him, trying to sense the catch. But there was only sincerity in his eyes. Why do you want to help me? You don't even know me. Because I feel guilty, Taehyun replied. And because. He hesitated, because sometimes people just need a second chance. I can give you that chance. The question is, are you ready to take it? Min-ji looked at Hyun Woo. The boy was holding her hand, and there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. She had 500,000 won in the pocket of her jacket hanging on the back of the chair. That money would last for maybe a couple of weeks, rent and food, nothing more. After that, she'd have to find a job, which meant leaving documents, revealing her location. Do-hyun would find her. He always did. And this man, Lee Tae-hyun, was offering her safety. At least for a while. You have to understand, she said quietly, my husband is dangerous. If he finds out where I am, he'll come. And that could cause trouble for you. My estate has security, Tae-hyun replied calmly. And a high fence. But I understand your concern. That's why I'm giving you time to think. You'll be discharged the morning after tomorrow. You have 1 day to make a decision. He stood up and walked toward the door, but turned at the threshold. Mrs. Han. Min-ji. I'm not a saint. I have my own reasons for helping you. But I promise I won't harm you. Or your son. When the door closed behind him, Min-ji leaned back on the pillow, feeling tears roll down her cheeks. Hyun Woo climbed onto the bed beside her and hugged her gently. Mom, he's nice, the boy whispered. He promised to protect us. Min-ji held her son close with her uninjured arm. She didn't know if the choice she'd make would be the right one. But she knew one thing for sure, she couldn't keep running in her condition. And Lee Tae-hyun, this stranger with eyes full of his own pain, was offering them a chance. Maybe their only one. The next day a lawyer came to see them. An elderly man in a strict suit introduced himself as Yoon Se-jae, Mr. Lee's personal attorney. Mr. Lee asked me to help you with legal matters, he said, taking a folder from his briefcase. Specifically, filing for divorce. Min-ji stared at the papers in shock. But I can't afford a lawyer. Mr. Lee is covering all the expenses. Yoon Se-jae opened the folder. I need you to tell me about your marriage. How long did the abuse last? Were there any witnesses? Did you ever go to the police? For the next 2 hours, Min-ji told her story. How she met Do-hyun at university, how kind and caring he had seemed. How everything changed a year after the wedding when he lost his job and began drinking. The first slap. The second. The years of fear and humiliation. The lawyer listened carefully, taking notes. "We have sufficient grounds for divorce," he finally said. "But the process could take several months. Your husband will resist it, that's clear. Are you ready for that?" "I am," Min-ji answered firmly. "I want to be free." When the lawyer left, she stood by the window for a long time. Outside, the October sun was shining. Somewhere out there in the city, Do-hyun was looking for her, angry, drunk, dangerous. But here, in this hospital room, for the first time in years, she felt something like hope. The day after tomorrow, she would be discharged. And she would tell Lee Tae-hyun yes. Tae-hyun's car, that same black Mercedes, glided smoothly along the road, leaving behind the noise and chaos of Seoul. Min-ji sat in the back seat, holding Hyun Woo close, watching out the window. Her shoulders still hurt, her head spun slightly from the painkillers, but she tried to sit straight. "We'll be there soon," Tae-hyun said, glancing in the rearview mirror. "About 20 more minutes." They had left the city around 10 in the morning. Now it was close to 1, and outside stretched autumn fields and hills covered in rust-colored leaves. Min-ji had never been outside Seoul. For the last 8 years, her world had been a small apartment on the outskirts and rare trips to the nearest supermarket. Do-hyun didn't like when she stayed out too long. "Is it pretty there?" Hyun Woo asked softly, leaning against her. "Very," Tae-hyun replied, and for the first time in days, there was warmth in his voice. "There's a big garden, a pond with koi fish, even a swing. I think you'll like it." The boy's eyes lit up, though he still looked cautious. The car turned onto a narrow road lined with tall trees, and a few minutes later, a high stone wall with massive gates appeared ahead. Tae-hyun pressed a button on a remote, and the gates opened silently. What Min-ji saw beyond them took her breath away. The estate was enormous. A 3-story modern mansion stood in the center of a well-kept property surrounded by flower beds of chrysanthemums and ornamental shrubs. To the right was a garden with fruit trees to the left, a large pond where bright fish swam. And beyond the house stretched a forest. This is your home?" Min-ji breathed. "Yes. I moved here 3 months ago, after." Tae-hyun paused. "After my divorce." The apartment in the city had too many memories. He parked by the main entrance. The door opened, and a woman in her 50s, wearing a strict gray suit, stepped out onto the porch. Her face was beautiful but stern, and her dark eyes assessed the newcomers sharply. "Mrs. Wah," Tae-hyun said, getting out of the car and opening the door for Min-ji. "This is Han Min-ji and her son, Hyun Woo. They'll be staying here. Min-ji will take the position of housemaid. Mrs. Wah, the estate's housekeeper, as Min-ji quickly understood, gave her a long, disapproving look. "Understood," she said coldly. "Follow me." Min-ji carefully got out of the car, holding her injured shoulder. Hyun Woo grabbed her hand tightly. They entered the house. Inside was even more impressive than outside, a spacious hall with high ceilings, marble floors, a wide staircase leading to the second floor. Paintings on the walls, antique furniture, a crystal chandelier scattering rainbow light. "There are 8 bedrooms here, Mrs. Wah began without turning around. 3 on the second floor, where Mr. Lee lives, and 5 on the third, for the staff. You'll be in the east wing, 3rd floor. The boy will stay with you." They climbed the stairs. The 3rd floor was simpler, a narrow corridor and several doors. Mrs. Wah opened one. The room was small but clean and bright. 2 single beds, a wardrobe, a desk by the window, and a private bathroom. After their cramped apartment, it felt like a palace. Tomorrow morning at 7 sharp I'll show you your duties, said Mrs. Wah. Be ready. I don't tolerate lateness. Mrs. Wah, Taehyun interjected, following them up the stairs. Min-ji was discharged from the hospital just yesterday. She needs time to recover. With your permission, Mr. Lee, there was steel in the housekeeper's voice. If this woman is to work in your house, she must understand the rules. Or are you planning to keep her and her child here for free? A tense silence fell. Min-ji saw Taehyun's jaw tighten. Give her a week to adjust, he said evenly. After that, she'll begin her full duties. That's not a request, Mrs. Wah. It's an order. The housekeeper inclined her head slightly, though anger flashed in her eyes. As you wish, sir. She turned and left. Taehyun sighed, watching her go. I'm sorry about that, he said to Min-ji. Mrs. Wah has served my family faithfully for 20 years. But sometimes she forgets her limits. I understand, Min-ji replied softly. She's protecting you. And she's suspicious of me. That's normal. Normal would be to show basic courtesy, Taehyun said dryly. Settle in. If you need anything, my room is on the 2nd floor, 3rd door on the right. Or you can call on the internal phone, number 1. He left, and they were alone again. Min-ji slowly sat on the bed, exhaustion washing over her. Hyun Woo climbed beside her, hugging his little backpack. Mom, I like this room, he whispered. It's bright. And it smells nice. Not like home. Not like home. Min-ji closed her eyes. Their old apartment had always smelled of stale smoke and alcohol. Here, the air smelled clean, fresh, like flowers from the garden. You're right, sweetheart, she whispered, hugging him. It's nice here. But deep inside, she felt uneasy. Mrs. Wah had looked at her like she was trash left on the doorstep of a noble house. And Min-ji knew her stay here wouldn't be easy. The week passed quickly. Min-ji spent most of it in her room, letting her shoulder heal. Their meals were brought by a young maid named So-ra, a shy girl of about 20 with a round, kind face. She was the only one who didn't look at Min-ji with suspicion. Don't mind Mrs. Wah, So-ra whispered on the 3rd day, bringing in lunch. She's always like that with newcomers. But she's not really mean. Thank you, Min-ji smiled gratefully. You're very kind. I just know what it's like to be a stranger in a big house, So-ra said, setting the tray on the table. I came from a village last year. At first, everyone looked at me like I was a thief. That week, Min-ji saw Taehyun several times. He came by in the evenings after work. He ran a construction company, So-ra had explained, and always checked on them. Hyun Woo was getting used to him, even starting to smile. How's your shoulder? Taehyun asked on the 6th day, sitting on the edge of a chair in their room. Much better, Min-ji gently rotated her arm. I barely feel pain now. Good. That means you can start working tomorrow. But nothing heavy, only light tasks. Deal? She nodded. Taehyun paused, then added, Attorney Yoon has filed the divorce papers. Your husband will be served within a week. Min-ji felt her heart clench. Do-hyun would know where to look. He'd see the law firm's address, start digging. Don't worry, Taehyun said, as if reading her thoughts. The lawyer used his downtown office address. There's no connection to this estate. And the guards have been instructed, if any man in his mid-30s starts hanging around the gates, they'll call the police immediately. Thank you, Min-ji whispered. I don't know how to repay your kindness. Do your job well. That's enough. The next morning started early. At 6:30, there was a sharp knock at the door. Min-ji jumped out of bed, quickly washed up, and dressed in a simple dark skirt and white blouse that So-ra had brought her the day before. Mrs. Wah was waiting downstairs in the hall, holding a tablet in her hands. "Good morning," she greeted coldly. "I hope you're ready to work?" "Yes, ma'am," Min-ji said, trying to sound confident. "Excellent. Your duties are as follows: cleaning the living room, dining room, and library on the first floor. You'll also be responsible for washing the bed linens. So Ari will show you where the cleaning supplies and equipment are kept. Do you have any questions?" "No, madam." "Then get started. You have 1 hour to clean each room. No more." 1 hour for the enormous living room? Min-ji swallowed but nodded. Madam Wah turned and walked away. So Ra led her to the first floor and showed her the utility room filled with vacuum cleaners, mops, and detergents. "Usually, the living room takes about an hour and a half," she said quietly. "But Madam Wah likes to give newcomers impossible tasks. Don't worry, I'll help you." But when they returned to the living room, Madam Wah was standing in the doorway. "So R.A., you have your own duties," she said coldly. "Min-ji will manage on her own. Or she won't, and then we'll see her true worth." So R.A. cast Min-ji an apologetic look and left. Min-ji was left alone in the vast living room, at least 60 square meters. She checked the clock, 7:05. She had until 8:05 to finish. She got to work. Vacuumed the carpets, wiped the furniture, cleaned the huge windows. Her shoulder ached, her hands trembled with fatigue, but she kept going. At 7:45, Madame Wah returned, her eyes scanning the room with a critical gaze. "Dust on the bookshelves," she said icily, running her finger along the top shelf. "Streaks on the windows. Uneven cushions on the sofa. Redo it." "But I have only 20 minutes left." "Then you should have worked faster. Or do you think your situation entitles you to leniency?" The contempt in her voice was so sharp that Min-ji felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. She nodded silently and started over. At 8:30, when she finally finished, her legs could barely hold her. Madame Wah inspected the room again, lips pressed tight. "Acceptable. But you're 30 minutes late." "Unacceptable. Be more efficient tomorrow." That was how Min-ji's new life in the Lee estate began. Each day was a test. Madame Wah found any excuse to criticize her. The laundry wasn't clean enough, the dining chairs weren't properly aligned, the floor wasn't spotless. She gave impossible deadlines, and when Min-ji couldn't meet them, she scolded her coldly. The other servants, the gardener, the cook, 2 maids, looked at her with suspicion. Rumors spread through the estate. Min-ji overheard fragments of conversations. "A young woman with a child. Of course she's after Mr. Lee. Where did she even come from? Just appeared out of nowhere. Madame Wah says she's an opportunist." Min-ji tried to ignore it, working herself to exhaustion. But each day she grew weaker. Her shoulder hadn't fully healed, her head often spun, and at night she lay awake, terrified that Do-hyun would somehow find them. The only bright moments were the evenings with Hyun Woo. The boy had adjusted faster than she had. So R.A. sometimes took him to the garden, gave him cookies in the kitchen. Hyun Woo had started smiling again, and that made everything worth it. And then there was Tae-hyun. He came home every evening after work and always found time to visit them. He brought books and toys for Hyun Woo, asked how their day had been. And when Min-ji answered cautiously, "Fine," she saw in his eyes that he understood. He knew it wasn't so simple. On the 10th day of her work, an incident happened. Min-ji was cleaning the library when she accidentally brushed against the shelf. One of the books, an old leather-bound edition, fell to the floor. She quickly picked it up, but to her horror, saw that the cover had slightly torn. "What have you done?" Madame Wah appeared in the doorway, her voice sharp as a knife. "That's the first edition of C.O. John's poetry, the favorite collection of the late Mrs. Lee. It's priceless. I didn't mean to." Min-ji clutched the book to her chest, her hands trembling. It was an accident. An accident? Madame Wah stepped closer, her face contorted with rage. Or did you do it on purpose? Maybe you think Mr. Lee will forgive you no matter what because he pities you? No. I would never. Silence. Madame Wah snatched the book from her hands. You're here only because Mr. Lee is too kind. But I see through you. You're just a beggar clinging to a rich man. Do you think he'll marry you? A woman with a child and a scandalous divorce? Don't make me laugh. The words struck like slaps. Min-ji stood with her head bowed, fists clenched. She wanted to shout, to defend herself, but she couldn't. Because deep down, she feared Madame Wah might be right. That she was a burden. That Tae-hyun pitted her out of guilt, and one day he would tire of it. Madame Wah. The cold voice made both women turn. Tae-hyun was standing in the doorway. He had heard everything. Madame Wah, he repeated in an icy tone. My office. Now. The housekeeper paled. She left the library without a word. Tae-hyun lingered, his gaze softening as he looked at Min-ji. Are you all right? Min-ji nodded, unable to trust her voice. Tae-hyun sighed. We'll talk later. He left. Min-ji slowly sat down on a chair, tears running down her cheeks. For the first time in years, they weren't tears of physical pain, but of helplessness and humiliation. Tae-hyun closed the door to his office and turned to Madame Wah. She stood straight, but anxiety flickered in her eyes. You've served my family for 20 years, he began, forcing his anger down. You saw me grow up. You helped my mother manage this house. And I respect your loyalty. But what I just heard crosses every line. Mr. Lee, don't speak. I'm not finished. He stepped closer. Han Min-ji is here not because I plan to marry her or have an affair. She's here because I hit her with my car while she was fleeing from her abusive husband, a man who beat her for 8 years. She's here because her 5-year-old son is terrified of his own father. She's here because she had nowhere else to go. Madame Wah opened her mouth, but he raised his hand to stop her. I know you think you're protecting me from women who might use my position or wealth. After what Soo-jin did, I understand your mistrust. But Min-ji is not Soo-jin. She never asked for help, I offered it. And if you can't treat her with respect, maybe we need to reconsider your position in this house. Madame Wah's face turned white. Sir. Forgive me. I didn't mean to offend you. I truly thought. You thought you were doing the right thing, Tae-hyun finished, his tone softening. I understand. But listen carefully, Madame Wah. Min-ji and her son are under my protection. Anyone who hurts or humiliates them will answer to me personally. That includes you, and everyone else in this house. I mean it. The housekeeper bowed her head. I understand, sir. And I sincerely apologize. You're right, I crossed the line. It won't happen again. Good. You may go. And tell the others, Min-ji is an equal member of this household. Treat her accordingly. When Madame Wah left, Tae-hyun sank into his chair, rubbing his face with both hands. He was exhausted. The past 2 months had been a nightmare, the divorce, the scandal in the press, the loss of trust. And now this, taking in a stranger and her child. Why was he doing this? Tae-hyun looked out the window at the garden slowly fading into evening shadows. He remembered Min-ji's face in the hospital, pale, frightened, yet filled with the fierce determination to protect her son. He remembered the way she'd looked at him when he offered her the job, wary, but hopeful. She reminded him that honesty still existed in the world. That not everyone lied or betrayed. That sometimes people just needed help, without hidden motives. Or maybe he was helping her because he couldn't help himself. Because he hadn't been able to save his marriage. Because he hadn't noticed his wife slipping away to another man. Because he'd felt blind and helpless. But Min-ji, he could save her. And he would. Tae-hyun rose and left his office. He climbed to the 3rd floor and knocked on Min-ji's door. No answer. He gently pushed it open. Min-ji sat on the bed, knees drawn to her chest, quietly crying. Hyun Woo slept beside her, wrapped in a blanket. She hadn't heard him come in. Min-ji, Tae-hyun said softly. She flinched, quickly wiping her tears. Mr. Lee. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You don't have to apologize, he said, sitting on the edge of the other bed. I should. For not stopping this sooner. I knew Madame Wall was biased, but I didn't realize how far she'd go. She's right, Min-ji whispered, staring at the floor. I'm a burden. I have nothing to offer. I can't even do my job properly. Stop, Tae-hyun said sharply. You're not a burden. You're a woman who survived hell, who found the strength to run and protect her child. You're stronger than you think. She looked up, her eyes red, full of pain. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Why are you helping us? I'm nobody to you. Tae-hyun was silent for a moment, choosing his words. 2 months ago, my wife left me, he said finally. For my best friend. They'd been seeing each other behind my back for a year, and I never noticed. I was too busy with work, money, my career. And do you know what I felt when I found out? Not pain. Not anger. Relief. He gave a bitter smile. Because our marriage had been a lie from the start. A union of 2 rich families. Soo-jin never loved me, and I never loved her. We just played our roles. And when it ended, I realized I didn't know what real meant anymore. Real feelings, real closeness, real honesty. He looked at Min-ji. Then I met you. And your son. And I saw real fear, real pain, real love, a mother's love for her child. You reminded me that something genuine still exists in this world. And I wanted to help. Not out of pity. But because. By helping you, maybe I'm helping myself. Do you understand? Min-ji stared at him wide-eyed, then slowly nodded. Thank you, she whispered. For your honesty. Thank you, he replied, for letting me help. He stood and turned toward the door, but she stopped him. Mr. Lee. The book can be repaired. I'll take it to a restorer and pay for it from my salary. Forget about the book, he shook his head. It's just an object. You're a person. You matter more. Tears shimmered again in her eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude. Tae-hyun left, quietly closing the door behind him. The next day, the atmosphere in the estate changed. Madame Wall was pointedly polite to Min-ji, though the chill in her eyes remained. The other servants were cautious too. Apparently, the housekeeper had passed on Tae-hyun's words. So Ra now openly helped Min-ji with her work, showing her tricks and secrets for cleaning the enormous house. At lunch in the servants' kitchen, the cook, Uncle Choi, a kind-hearted man in his 60s, put an extra portion on Min-ji's plate. Eat, girl, he said. You're far too thin. Gradually, Min-ji began to feel more confident. The work was still hard, but doable. And most importantly, she no longer felt constant pressure and humiliation. Hyun Woo was also thriving. The boy spent his days running around the garden, helping the old gardener, Mr. Rowe, plant flowers and feed the carp in the pond. He started gaining weight, his cheeks turned rosy, and his eyes sparkled again. In the evenings, Tae-hyun often came by. Sometimes he brought puzzles or books for Hyun Woo, sometimes he just sat and talked with them. Min-ji gradually grew used to his presence, no longer tensing up every time he appeared. One evening, 3 weeks after their arrival, Tae-hyun found them in the garden. Min-ji was sitting on a bench by the pond, watching Hyun Woo feed the fish. The October sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. "May I join you?" asked Taehyun, approaching the bench. Of course, Min-ji moved aside, making room for him. They sat in silence, watching the boy. Hyun Woo laughed whenever a big orange carp jumped out of the water to snatch the food. "He's changed," Taehyun said softly. "Over these weeks, he's become more open. Here he feels safe," Min-ji replied. For the first time in his life, he's not afraid someone might start yelling or hitting him. "And you? Do you feel safe too?" Min-ji thought for a moment. Did she? During the day, yes. When she worked, when she saw her son smile, when she chatted with Soare in the kitchen, yes. But at night, when she couldn't sleep, the nightmares still came. Do-hyun bursting into the room, dragging her by the hair, screaming that she was his property. "Almost," she answered honestly. "The fear hasn't gone completely. It probably won't for a while." "That's understandable. But you're coping. And I'm proud of you." Min-ji turned to him, surprised. "Proud?" "Yes," Taehyun looked at the sunset. "Not everyone can start over after what you've been through. You're very strong, Min-ji." Her cheeks flushed. No one had ever said such words to her. Do-hyun had called her weak, stupid, worthless. But this man, who had known her barely a month, was saying she was strong. "Thank you," she whispered. They sat for a while longer in silence until the sun disappeared behind the horizon and Hyun Woo ran up to them, yawning. "Mom, I'm tired. Can we go to bed?" "Of course, sweetheart," Min-ji stood up. "Good night, Mr. Lee." "Good night, Min-ji." "Good night, Hyun Woo." When they left, Taehyun remained sitting in the darkening garden. Something was changing inside him. He was starting to realize how much he looked forward to these evening meetings, how his eyes searched for Min-ji when he came home, how his heart warmed when Hyun Woo greeted him with a smile. It was dangerous. He wasn't supposed to get attached. But he couldn't stop himself anymore. 2 weeks later, in mid-November, the thing Min-ji feared most happened. She was cleaning the dining room when the phone rang in the hall. A minute later, Mrs. Wah appeared. "Min-ji, a call for you. Lawyer Yoon." Her heart dropped. Min-ji quickly took off her gloves and picked up the internal phone. "Hello? Mrs. Han, this is Yoon C&J." The lawyer's voice sounded tense. "We have a problem. Your husband refuses to appear in court. Moreover, he's hired a lawyer who's filed a countersuit. He demands the return of the child, claiming you kidnapped him." Min-ji felt the room blur before her eyes. "But that's not true. I didn't kidnap my son, I was saving him." "I know. And we have enough evidence of domestic abuse to disprove his claims. But there's something else. Your husband has hired a private investigator. He's trying to find out where you are." "Oh God," Min-ji leaned against the wall, her legs trembling. "He hasn't found anything yet, Mr. Lee was very careful keeping your whereabouts secret. But I had to warn you. Be cautious. Don't leave the estate. Don't call anyone from your past. Understood?" "Understood," she whispered. "Thank you for letting me know." When she hung up, her hands were shaking. Do-hyun was looking for them. Actively. And sooner or later he would find them. Min-ji knew his stubbornness and rage too well. That evening, she told Taehyun everything. They sat in his office. He insisted she come talk to him privately. "I'll increase the security," Taehyun said immediately after hearing her out. 2 more guards at the gate, additional cameras along the perimeter. "But all this is because of me," Min-ji clasped her hands tightly. "I'm causing you trouble. Maybe I should leave, find another place." You're not going anywhere, Taehyun said firmly. That's exactly what your husband wants, to lure you out into the open. You're safe here. And you'll stay until the divorce is finalized. But the lawyer said the process could drag on for months. Then for months. Min-ji, he leaned forward, looking straight into her eyes. I made you a promise. And I'll keep it. Don't worry, all right? She nodded slowly, feeling her throat tighten. This man, who had been a stranger just a month and a half ago, was protecting her more fiercely than anyone ever had. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what we would do without you. Don't thank me. Just be careful. The next day, the security really was strengthened. Now 2 guards were stationed at the gate, a patrol walked the grounds, and cameras watched every corner of the estate. Min-ji tried not to show her fear to Hyun Woo, but the boy sensed it anyway. Mom, will Dad find us? He asked one night as they were going to bed. No, sweetheart, she hugged him tightly. We're protected here. Mister. Lee won't let Dad hurt us. Mister. Lee's nice, Hyun Woo murmured sleepily. I want him to be my real dad. Min-ji froze. Her heart clenched, with tenderness and anxiety all at once. Hyun Woo had grown attached to Taehyun. But what would happen when they left? When the divorce was over and she had to start over again? She couldn't let her son get too attached. She couldn't let herself hope for more than a temporary refuge. But with every passing day, it became harder. Weeks passed. November turned into early December, but winter still hesitated. The days were cool but sunny. Life at the estate settled into a steady rhythm. Min-ji worked, Hyun Woo played in the garden or helped Uncle Choi in the kitchen. Taehyun came home from work and always stopped by to talk with them. Mrs. What gradually softened. One day she even told Min-ji her work was well done, the highest praise possible from her. And when Hyun Woo caught a mild cold, the housekeeper herself brought him warm milk with honey. You surprise me, madam, Min-ji said softly that evening as Mrs. Wha checked on the boy. The older woman was silent for a moment, smoothing the blanket on Hyun Woo's bed. I was unfair to you, she finally admitted. I judged without knowing the story. Mr. Lee was right, you're not an opportunist. You're just a mother trying to protect her child. And I respect that. Thank you, Min-ji was moved to tears. Your words mean a lot to me. Just don't tell Mr. Lee I've softened, Mrs. Wha added with a faint smile. Let him think I'm still strict. Min-ji smiled back. Something was changing, not only in her relationships with the people in the mansion but within herself. She no longer felt like a victim. For the first time in years, she began to believe she deserved respect, care, kindness. And she started to notice how she looked at Taehyun. How her heart raced when he entered the room. How she liked the sound of his voice, his rare smiles, the way he tilted his head when listening. How her palms grew damp when he accidentally touched her hand. It was dangerous. Foolish. He was her employer, a wealthy heir, a man from an entirely different world. And she, a woman with a painful past, going through a divorce, with a child to raise. There could be nothing between them. But the heart didn't obey reason. 2.5 months had passed since Min-ji and Hyun Woo arrived at the estate. It was late December, and although there was no snow yet, the air had turned crisp, and frost sparkled on the grass in the mornings. Hyun Woo's 6th birthday was approaching, January 3rd. The boy could hardly wait, constantly asking if there would be a cake and presents. Of course there will be, Min-ji promised, setting aside part of her salary for a small gift. But when she mentioned her son's birthday during dinner in the servants' kitchen, Soare grabbed her hand. We'll throw him a real party. The girl exclaimed enthusiastically. Uncle Choi will bake a cake, I'll decorate the dining room, and you just enjoy it. But that's too much. Nonsense, Uncle Choi interrupted while stirring the soup. The boy deserves a celebration. Besides, it's his first birthday in safety, isn't it? Min-ji felt a lump in her throat. These people, who had looked at her with suspicion 2 months ago, now felt almost like family. Thank you, she whispered. You're all so kind. That evening, she told Taehyun about the upcoming celebration. They were sitting in the library, Taehyun working through documents, Min-ji sorting books she had restored. The old edition of Seo John's poetry was as good as new again, and only the two of them knew its story. Hyun Woo's birthday? Taehyun looked up from his papers. January 3rd? Yes. He'll be 6. What does he like? Cars? Building sets? Min-ji smiled. He loves books. Especially about animals. And he draws a lot. He has a whole collection of drawings under his bed. I see, Taehyun smiled mysteriously. Then I have an idea for a gift. Mr. Lee, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. But I want to. Hyun Woo's a good boy. He deserves a real birthday. Min-ji looked at him, warmth spreading through her chest. This man was too kind. Too caring. Too perfect. Why are you so good to us? The question slipped out before she could stop herself. Taehyun froze, looking at her. What do you mean? Well. Min-ji hesitated, realizing she'd said too much. Most people in your position would have just sent me to a hospital, paid the bill, and forgotten. But you gave us a home. Protection. Care. You treat Hyun Woo like he's your own. Why? Taehyun was silent for a long time. Then he slowly set the documents aside and stood up, walking to the window. Because you reminded me of something important, he said quietly, looking out at the darkening garden. You reminded me what the present truly is. After my divorce from Soo-jin, I felt empty. I thought all people lied, manipulated, used each other. I lost faith in sincerity. He turned, meeting her gaze. And then I met you. A woman who never asked for help but desperately needed it. Who ran not for money or status, but for her child's safety. Who worked herself to exhaustion without complaint. Who thanked everyone for the smallest kindness as if it were the greatest gift. You showed me that honesty still exists in this world. And for that, I'm grateful to you. Min-ji stood frozen, unable to look away from his face. There was something in his eyes, something deeper than gratitude, something that made her heart beat faster. But that's not the only reason, is it? She whispered, taking a step toward him. Taehyun tensed. Min-ji. Tell me the truth. Please. He closed his eyes as if fighting with himself. When he opened them again, there was both pain and tenderness in his gaze, so much that Min-ji could hardly breathe. Because I've fallen in love with you, he exhaled. I didn't want to. I didn't plan it. I tried to convince myself it was just sympathy or gratitude. But that's not true. I fell in love with your strength. Your kindness. The way you smile at your son. The way you care for others even when you yourself need care. I fell in love with everything you are. And it terrifies me. Min-ji felt tears welling up in her eyes. Her heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. Why does it terrify you? Because you deserve better. Taehyun took a step toward her. You deserve someone who isn't broken by divorce, who isn't cynical, who isn't afraid to trust again. Someone who can give you stability, peace, confidence in tomorrow. And I'm just a rich failure who couldn't keep his own marriage together. Don't you dare talk about yourself like that. Min-ji stepped forward now there were only a few centimeters between them. You're the kindest, most caring man I've ever met. You saved my life. You saved my son. You gave us hope when we'd lost everything. How can you call yourself a failure? Min-ji. His voice was hoarse. I'm in love with you too, she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. I tried not to admit it. Told myself it was foolish, that there's a chasm between us. But every time you walk into a room, the world feels brighter. Every time you smile at Hyun Woo, my heart melts. I love you, Lee Tae-hyun. And I'm scared too. They stood staring at each other, the air between them charged with tension. Tae-hyun slowly raised his hand, gently touching her cheek. This is madness, he murmured. I know, she closed her eyes under his touch. You're still married. Your divorce isn't finalized. I know. There are so many obstacles between us. I know. Tae-hyun pulled her closer, and Min-ji didn't resist. His forehead touched hers, their breaths mingled. But I can't pretend I don't feel this anymore, he whispered. I can't keep my distance. Then don't, she opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. I'm not asking for promises. Not for a future. Just stay with me. Now. He kissed her. Slowly, carefully, as if afraid to break the fragile moment. His lips were warm and gentle, and Min-ji felt something inside her shatter, the wall she had built for 8 years to protect herself from pain. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing heavily. What are we doing? Tae-hyun whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I don't know, Min-ji answered honestly. But it feels right. They stood in each other's arms for a while, savoring the closeness, until the sound of small footsteps echoed in the hallway. Mom! Hyun Woo burst into the library in his pajamas. I can't sleep. Uncle Choi told me about my birthday, and now I'm too excited. Min-ji and Tae-hyun quickly stepped away from each other. The boy froze, looking at them curiously. Were you hugging? We. Min-ji stammered. But Tae-hyun crouched down, smiling. Yes. Because your mom is wonderful. And I care about her very much. Do you mind? Hyun Woo tilted his head, thinking. Then he grinned widely. No. I like it. So you're together now? Like mom and dad? Min-ji and Tae-hyun exchanged a glance. It was far too soon for that conversation, too much uncertainty still between them. But seeing the hope in the boy's eyes. We'll see, little one, Tae-hyun said softly. For now, how about I walk you back to bed? And tell you a story so you can fall asleep. About a prince and princess? Exactly. Tae-hyun took the boy's hand, giving Min-ji a warm look before leaving the library with him. Min-ji remained standing in the middle of the room, pressing her hand to her lips. She could still feel the warmth of his kiss. Still couldn't believe it had happened. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream of happiness. The next 2 weeks felt like a dream. Tae-hyun and Min-ji tried to act cautiously around others but exchanged secret glances, light touches, and rare kisses when no one was watching. Hyun Woo was delighted, constantly asking when Mr. Lee would become a real dad. On January 3rd, they threw a birthday party. Uncle Choi baked a huge chocolate cake, so R.A. decorated the dining room with balloons and garlands, and all the estate staff gathered to celebrate. Hyun Woo was over the moon. Then Tae-hyun brought out his gift, a big box tied with a red ribbon. This is for you, Hyun Woo, he said, setting it in front of the boy. The child opened it with trembling hands, and gasped. Inside was a full set of professional paints, brushes, an easel, and a stack of canvases. Real artist paints. Hyun Woo exclaimed in awe. Like adults use. So R.A. told me you love to draw. Tae-hyun knelt beside him. Now you can create real paintings. Hyun Woo threw his arms around him, repeating thank you over and over. Min-ji stood aside, wiping tears from her eyes. Tae-hyun looked up at her over the boy's head, his gaze so full of tenderness it made her breath catch. I love you, he mouthed silently. I love you too, she mouthed back. But the happiness didn't last. The next day, January 4th, the thing they had all feared happened. Min-ji was working in the living room when a loud commotion erupted by the gates, shouting, the sounds of a struggle, alarm sirens. She ran into the hall where Mrs. Woo was already standing with her phone in hand. Some man is trying to break through the gates, the housekeeper said, dialing the police. The guards are holding him, but he's violent. Min-ji froze. She knew. Without anyone telling her, she knew who it was. Do-hyun, she whispered. He found us. She ran upstairs to her room where Hyun Woo was painting with his new set. The boy looked up, his smile fading at the sight of her face. Mom? What's wrong? Hyun Woo, listen to me carefully. Min-ji knelt before him, gripping his shoulders. Your father is here. But Mr. Lee and the guards won't let him in. You must stay in this room, okay? No matter what happens, don't come out. The boy's face turned pale. He wants to take us away? No. I won't let him. I promise. She kissed his forehead and ran out, locking the door behind her. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. When she reached the hall, Tae-hyun was already there. He had returned from work earlier than usual. His face was hard. The guards have him at the gate, he said as she ran up. The police are on their way. But he's demanding to see you. Threatening to break down the gate. I can't face him, Min-ji trembled. I can't. And you won't, Tae-hyun said firmly, putting an arm around her shoulders. I'll handle it. No. He's dangerous, he might, I'll handle it. Trust me. He went outside, but Min-ji ignored his words and followed him. Mrs. Woo tried to stop her, but she broke free. She had to see. She had to know what was happening. They reached the gate. Behind the tall metal bars stood Do-hyun, disheveled, eyes bloodshot with rage, his jacket dirty. 2 guards held him, but he struggled violently. Min-ji! He shouted when he saw her. Get out here right now. You're my wife. You have no right to hide in another man's house. She has every right to be where she's safe, Tae-hyun said coldly, stepping between the gate and Min-ji. You received the divorce papers. You were summoned to court but ignored it. The process will proceed without you. Shut up, you rich bastard. Do-hyun spat in his direction. You think money gives you the right to steal another man's wife? She's mine. Hyun Woo is mine. And I'll take them back, whether you like it or not. You won't. Tae-hyun stepped closer to the gate, his voice icy. Min-ji filed for divorce on grounds of domestic violence. The lawyer has medical records proving the abuse. Witness statements from neighbors. You've already lost, Mr. Han. Accept it. I haven't lost anything. Do-hyun jerked against the guards. She's my wife. The law's on my side, I'm her husband, I'm the father. The law is on the victim's side, Tae-hyun countered. And if you don't leave right now, the police will arrest you for disorderly conduct and threats. Do-hyun froze, breathing heavily. His eyes shifted from Tae-hyun to Min-ji standing a few meters behind. The hatred in his gaze made her blood run cold. You'll regret this, he hissed. I swear, you'll regret it. I'll find a way to take everything from you. Your son. Your home. Your peace. Everything. Enough, Tae-hyun pulled out his phone. Guards, if he doesn't leave immediately, use force. In the distance, sirens wailed, the police were coming. Do-hyun heard them too. With one last look, full of rage and the promise of revenge, he tore free from the guards and ran off, disappearing down the road just as the police cars pulled up to the gate. Min-ji's knees gave way, and Tae-hyun caught her before she could fall. It's over, he whispered, holding her close. He's gone. You're safe. But she didn't feel safe. Do-hyun's glare, his words, "I'll find a way to take everything from you," echoed in her mind. The police took her statement, recorded the guards' testimonies, and promised to issue a warrant for Do-hyun's arrest for making threats and violating the restraining order. But Min-ji knew that wouldn't stop him. Do-hyun was like a rabid dog that latches onto its prey and never lets go. That evening, she sat in her room, holding Hyun Woo close. The boy was crying. He had heard his father shouting at the gate, and all his fear came rushing back. "Mom, I'm scared," he sobbed. "He's so mean. Will he take us back?" "No, sweetheart." "Never," Min-ji stroked his hair, though she was trembling herself. "Mr. Lee will protect us. Do you promise?" "I promise." There was a soft knock on the door. Taehyun entered with a tray, hot tea and cookies. "I brought you something to calm down," he said, placing the tray on the table. "Hyun Woo, how are you feeling?" "Better, now that you're here," the boy wiped his tears. Taehyun sat beside them on the bed. "Listen to me, Hyun Woo. Your father can't hurt you anymore. The police are looking for him, and when they find him, he'll be punished for everything he's done. Until then, you're safe here, in this house. I promise you that. You're strong." Hyun Woo looked at him with admiration. "You scared him away. Like a superhero." Taehyun smiled, but Min-ji could see the tension in his eyes. "Go have some tea and cookies," she said to her son. "I need to talk to Mr. Lee for a minute." When Hyun Woo went to the table, she turned to Taehyun. "You took a risk today," she said quietly. "Do-hyun could have attacked you. He's unpredictable when he's drunk and angry." "I couldn't let him get to you," Taehyun answered simply. "And I'll do it again if I have to." "But what if he comes back? What if he tries to break in? Then I'll be ready." "Min-ji, look at me," he took her hands. "I won't let him take you. I won't let him even touch you or Hyun Woo. Do you hear me? I'll protect you, no matter what. Why are you risking so much for us?" She whispered. "We're strangers to you." "You're not a stranger," Taehyun pulled her closer, his voice softening. "You're the woman I love. And I won't leave you in danger. Never." Min-ji pressed against his chest, tears streaming down her cheeks. She believed him. She believed every word. But the fear still wouldn't let her go. 3 months passed. It was early April, and the world was transforming. The trees in the estate garden were covered in tender green, tulips and daffodils bloomed in the flower beds, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of spring. A lot had changed in those 3 months. Do-hyun was arrested a week after showing up at the gate. They found him in a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city, drunk and aggressive. The charges were serious: domestic violence, violation of a restraining order, threats. The court sentenced him to 2 years in prison and mandatory rehabilitation for alcoholism. And most importantly, Min-ji got her divorce. Officially, legally, finally. She was free. The day lawyer Yoon brought her the documents, Min-ji sat in the garden and cried. She cried out of relief, out of joy, because at last, 8 years of nightmare were over. Taehyun found her there, embraced her, and they just sat in silence, watching the sun set beyond the horizon. "You're free," he whispered. "Finally free. Thanks to you." She turned to him, placing her hand on his cheek. "I couldn't have done it without you." "You could have," he replied. "You're stronger than you think. I just gave you time and space." After the divorce, Min-ji continued working at the estate, but her relationship with Taehyun had changed. They no longer hid. He openly had dinner with her and Hyun Woo, walked with them through the garden, took them on trips to the city. The household staff accepted it calmly. Mrs. Woo even told Min-ji once that she was glad to see Mr. Lee happy again. After his divorce from Soo-jin, he was like a shadow, the housekeeper admitted. Closed off, cold, miserable. But now he's smiling again. And that's thanks to you. Hyun Woo blossomed. The boy started attending a preparatory class at the local school, made friends, and became passionate about drawing. His room was filled with paintings, bright, joyful, full of sunshine. In many of them, he painted 3 people, his mother, himself, and a tall man he labeled as Dad Taehyun. One evening, at the end of April, Taehyun asked Min-ji and Hyun Woo to come to the dining room. When they entered, a beautiful dinner was set on the table, candles, flowers, and the boy's favorite dishes. "What's this?" Min-ji asked in surprise. "Sit down." Taehyun pulled out a chair for her. "I want to say something." They sat down. Hyun Woo looked at him curiously, chewing on a piece of bread. Taehyun took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on Min-ji. "Min-ji," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "These last 6 months have been the strangest and happiest of my life. You came into my life at its darkest moment, when I'd lost faith in people, in love, in the future. And now, because of you, I believe again. I believe I can be happy. That I can love and be loved, truly." He stood up from the table, walked over to her, and knelt down on one knee. Min-ji gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "Han Min-ji," Taehyun continued, taking a small velvet box from his pocket. "I know we haven't known each other for long. I know our beginning was unusual. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to be there when you're hurting and when you're happy. I want to be a father to Hyun Woo, if he'll let me. I want to build a real family with you. Will you marry me?" He opened the box, and inside glimmered a ring, simple, elegant, with a small diamond. Min-ji couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her throat tightened with emotion. She looked at the man who had saved her, protected her, and given her a new life, and realized that there was nothing she wanted more than to be by his side. "Yes," she whispered through her tears. "Yes. 1,000 times yes. Yes." Hyun Woo shouted, jumping off his chair. "Mom said yes. Does that mean Mr. Lee will be my real dad?" Taehyun laughed, slipping the ring onto Min-ji's finger, then turned to the boy. "Hyun Woo," he said seriously, "I want to ask you something important. Will you let me be your dad? I promise to take care of you, protect you, and love you as my own son. What do you say?" Hyun Woo ran into his arms, sobbing with happiness. "Yes. I want you to be my dad. I really want that." Taehyun hugged the boy tightly, then drew Min-ji close as well. The 3 of them stood there, holding each other, and the whole world seemed to pause in that moment of perfect happiness. At the doorway of the dining room, Mrs. Woo stood, dabbing her tears with a handkerchief. Beside her, So-ra and Uncle Choi smiled, quietly applauding. The wedding was held 2 months later, in early June. A small ceremony in the estate garden, with only the closest people, the servants who had become family, Lawyer Yoon, and a few of Taehyun's friends. Min-ji stood under an arch decorated with roses, in a simple white dress. Next to her was Hyun Woo in a little suit, proudly holding the ring box. Across from them stood Taehyun, in a dark suit, his eyes full of tears of happiness. When the officiant asked, "Do you take this woman to be your wife?" Taehyun answered firmly and loudly, "I do. And I promise to love, cherish, and protect her for the rest of my life." "And you, do you take this man to be your husband?" "I do," Min-ji whispered, looking into his eyes. "And I promise to love, support, and walk beside him through life, in joy and in sorrow." When they were declared husband and wife, Hyun Woo was the first to shout, "Hooray!" and ran to hug them both. At the small celebration after the ceremony, Mrs. Woo approached Min-ji. I want to apologize, the elderly woman said, taking her hands. For the way I treated you at first. I was blind and prejudiced. But now I see, you are exactly what Mr. Lee needed. You made him happy. And I am grateful to you for that. Thank you, Min-ji hugged her. For giving me a chance to prove myself. You've proven more than I could have hoped, Mrs. Woo smiled through her tears. You've shown true strength of spirit. Welcome to the family, Mrs. Lee. Mrs. Lee. Min-ji repeated the words to herself and smiled. She was no longer Han Min-ji, the wife of a tyrant, the victim of abuse. She was Lee Min-ji, beloved wife, happy mother, part of a real family. That evening, after the guests had left, Taehyun, Min-ji, and Hyun Woo sat on a bench by the pond, the very spot where they had often talked over the past months. The boy fell asleep, resting his head on his mother's lap. Taehyun wrapped his arm around Min-ji's shoulders, and they gazed at the starry sky. Are you happy? He asked softly. Happier than I ever thought possible, she replied, snuggling closer. Thank you. For everything. You saved me, Taehyun kissed her temple. You reminded me what real love is. What a real family is. They sat in silence, listening to the sounds of the garden at night, the rustle of leaves, the splash of water in the pond, the distant chirping of crickets. And in that silence was complete harmony. Min-ji remembered that terrifying night 6 months ago, when she ran with Hyun Woo in her arms, not knowing where to go, afraid of every sound. She remembered the bright headlights, the impact, the darkness. She remembered waking up in the hospital and the stranger with guilty eyes who offered her a chance. One moment had changed everything. One person had changed everything. No, she corrected herself. Not one person changed everything. She had changed everything herself when she found the strength to run. When she decided to fight for her freedom and her son's freedom. When she believed she deserved better. Taehyun had just given her the space and time for that strength to bloom. What are you thinking about? He asked, noticing her reflective mood. About how sometimes the scariest moments in life lead to the most beautiful ones, Min-ji replied. If not for that night, that car, that accident, we would never have met. I think we would have met anyway, Taehyun smiled. Fate has a strange way of bringing people together who are meant to be. Do you believe in fate? Now I do. Hyun Woo stirred in his sleep, mumbling something about carp and paint. Min-ji gently stroked his head, and the boy calmed. He will be happy here, Taehyun whispered. He will have the childhood he deserves. Love, safety, freedom. Thanks to you. Thanks to us. Thanks to the family we built together. They sat by the pond for a long time, until the night grew very deep and Hyun Woo finally fell asleep. Then Taehyun carefully lifted the boy in his arms, and the three of them went into the house, their fortress, their place where it would always be warm and safe. And as Min-ji closed the bedroom door, tucking her son into bed, she looked out at the starry sky and whispered, "Thank you." She thanked fate for that terrifying moment that had led to happiness. She thanked herself for the strength to fight. She thanked Taehyun for believing in her. She thanked every person in the estate who had become part of their new life. And somewhere far away, behind the high walls of the prison, Do-hyun sat in his cell, cursing his fate. But his curses no longer had any power. He was left in the past, in a life that no longer existed. And Min-ji stepped into the future. A bright future, full of love and hope. 3 years passed. Hyun Woo was 9 years old and already in the 3rd grade at the local school. His drawings decorated every wall of the house, and he had even recently won a school art contest. Taehyun hung his winning piece, a vivid depiction of a happy family in the garden, in his office. Min-ji no longer worked as a housemaid. Taehyun insisted that she receive an education, and now she was taking courses in landscape design, dreaming of creating beautiful gardens. Her first project was the estate garden, which she completely redesigned, transforming it into a true work of art. And they had a daughter, little So-hee, who had just turned 1. The girl was Min-ji's spitting image, with big brown eyes and a contagious smile. Hyun Woo adored his little sister, constantly drawing pictures for her and teaching her first words. "Daddy." So he squealed, pointing at Taehyun. "Good girl," Taehyun scooped her up, kissing her on the cheek. Mrs. Wah, now 53, became an honorary grandmother to the children. She spoiled them, protected them from any trouble, and proudly told everyone she had witnessed the birth of this family. Do-hyun was released from prison after 2 years, but his life was irreparably broken. He lost his job, apartment, and friends. The last Min-ji heard about him from the lawyer was that he had moved to another city, underwent treatment for alcoholism, and no longer tried to contact her or her son. The past remained in the past. One spring evening, while Hyun Woo did his homework and so he slept in the nursery, Min-ji and Taehyun sat on their favorite bench by the pond. "Remember when you asked me 3 years ago if I was happy?" Min-ji said softly. "I remember." Taehyun intertwined his fingers with hers. "Back then, I said I was happier than I thought possible. But you know what? Now I'm even happier. Every day I wake up and can't believe this is my life. That I have you, our children, this home. That I am free. Loved. Safe." Taehyun turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I thank fate every day for that night. For bringing you to me. You know, doctors say there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. And I believe we met exactly when we both needed saving. You saved me from emptiness. I gave you safety. Together we built what we both dreamed of, a real family." They kissed, slowly and tenderly, savoring the moment. From the house came Hyun Woo's voice, "Mom. Dad. Come see. So he is trying to walk." They laughed and ran inside, where their daughter, holding onto the couch, was taking her first unsteady steps. And in that moment, Min-ji understood, this was happiness. Not in wealth or luxury. Not in a perfect life without problems. But in love. In family. And knowing that even after the darkest night, dawn always comes. And her dawn was beautiful.